Tonight, we want to be a listing channel for all of you to tell us what you're looking for, okay? This is our CIP, our Capital Improvement Plan. We've already had, I think it's $32 million worth of requests. We will probably fund about $9 to $10 million this year. So there's got to be a lot of working on this budget. We're not there yet. We have several elephants in the room, one of them being the Curving Commission. We don't know where it's going to fall. This document, no matter how well we plan for it, will probably take a lot of changes between now and the time that council approves it, basically because legislature is not open yet. Come January, February, we'll know where we're going to be falling. We'll know how much money we've got coming in and what we can do and how much borrowing power we'll have. So we would like to hear it from everybody. We're going to ask you to be kind in the fact that if someone else has already gotten up and said basically what you want to say, please let it go at that. We can hear you, we can write, and we've got Pack 14, we'll watch it again tomorrow. But we don't need 15 people telling us the same thing. So any project that doesn't get mentioned, please get up and tell us what you're looking for. So with that, I'd like to introduce Wayne Strasburg, our Director of Administration. Weston Young is our Deputy Director of Administration, and we're going to ask this year that Weston pretty much handle the CIP, going over the PowerPoint and everything, and you're welcome to direct your question to anybody and everybody that's up here. So, and even some of you out in the crowd, we may direct questions to you. So, all right, with that, thank you so much. And Weston, if you will, please.
Good evening. The Capital Improvement Plan, and I'll refer to it as a CIP, is the first step in the budget process. This is a planning document for the larger projects the county invests in. It'll be helpful to follow along in the handouts we had out front, because some of the numbers and such on the slide show will be a little hard to read. This specific slide handles what is a capital project, what qualifies as a capital project. So you want to think buildings, you want to think property acquisition, you want to think major equipment. Smaller capital items such as cars and trucks, as well as non-capital items such as operating expenses, are handled in the budget process. So as you can see, these are what we consider capital projects. The CIP cycle, especially for multi-year projects, follows this process. It starts with, and let's see if the laser pointer works. It starts with department input. So as Bob mentioned, and we'll get to that slide shortly, we've received about $32 million in capital project requests by our department heads and the other entities that we fund. The next step in the process is where we are now, public input, and when I'm done these few slides, as Bob mentioned, we'll turn it over to you to hear your input, what you want prioritized, and maybe there's something we haven't considered yet. So following this, we plan to submit, and we typically submit to council in December, so we have about a month to work on this, and after this meeting, and pretty much until it's submitted, we will be deliberating and prioritizing. And keep in mind, this is a planning document, and as Bob mentioned, even with what we submit in December, it's bound to change some. Historically, by February, council has approved the CIP. Now, last year, one of the things our two branches of government realized is it's not until March that we usually have our revenue estimates and we know what we can actually expect to be able to fund. And then it almost makes more sense to approve the CIP and the budget at the same time, because you can basically approve your wish list in February and then find out you can't fund projects, or you have more money and you can fund more projects. So that's something that we may look at a charter amendment in the future, because we think that makes sense. But for now, council will submit in December. They will have time to review it. If you look at this next section, and in April, we have our budget submission to council. It will include the projects in the CIP. By that point, we have a better idea of our revenue estimates, and when council approves the budget, that's when money is appropriated for those projects that have made the cut. Also, it should be noted that there's plenty of opportunity for public comments along the way. There'll be work sessions with council. There'll be public hearings for both the CIP approval and the budget process. Wanted to touch on what is our debt service policy. And for CIP projects, we've typically borrowed about $10 million each year. And we have a policy that our principal and interest payments do not exceed 12% of recurring general fund revenue. Now that says new revenue, and that's a little confusing, but it's recurring revenue. So we look at how much revenue we anticipate to receive, and we do not want to exceed 12% of that. To capture the scope of this, if you look on this slide, our annual principal and interest payment for this fiscal year is almost $15.3 million. That's out of a budget of about $141 million. Now that does not include our enterprise funds and so forth. So the numbers you're going to see in this presentation are almost all general fund related. So yeah, right now we're sitting at about 10.81% of principal and interest. So we have some room to grow, but as Bob mentioned, with some of the pending legislation at the state level, we're playing it a little safe. This is our existing debt broken down, and if you remember on the previous slide, the principal and interest payment of $15.2 million, you can see this down at the bottom of this section. That's broken. About 11.1 is principal payment and 4.1 is interest. And so the trend has been, we're paying 11 million towards principal and we borrow about 10. So we've been making a positive trend on our debt payments over time. So we've been rapidly paying off debt. I don't have the numbers on here, but our current debt limit is actually $230 million. So we're at approximately 116 this fiscal year. So we're a little over 50% of what we can borrow according to charter. So this is where, looking at your handout, will be easier to see this, and even then it'll be small. We'll have this posted to the website shortly after this meeting so that you can zoom into it. But this is, as Bob mentioned, these are the requests. We haven't had time to really dig in and determine what we want to put priority-wise. But this is what we've received from our departments, as well as the other entities we fund, such as Warwick, the Board of Ed, the library, the health department, and so forth. So we're looking at a little over $32 million in general fund requests. The section below that is enterprise fund, which usually pays for itself if possible, so you can see what solid waste, tourism, and at least the airport enterprise fund plans to pay for. The total of the 5-year plan is about $105 million worth of projects. And these numbers, again, at least for the top of the chart, are only county general fund requests. This does not include state and federal grants and other funding sources that we may get. This is purely what is being asked for, I guess, the general fund revenue that taxes pay for. The Board of Ed CIP process runs ahead of ours, so unlike where we have to go through and look at our departments and finalize it, they have provided us their priority projects. I know many people here are here in support of the Board of Ed's priority, so we wanted to include this slide just to show that this is what they requested, and it should sync perfectly with their CIP booklet. Again, these numbers are what's being requested from the county general fund. It does not include the state match, which is typically at least 50%. of the school board funding. And in the case of systemic renovations, it can be significantly more than what the county puts towards it. And as mentioned before, this meeting is about hearing from you and your priorities. This is not your only opportunity to comment. As I mentioned before, please reach out to us by phone or by email. There'll also be the various public hearings as we go from this meeting to the public hearing processes for the budget approval. So there'll be more opportunities to speak and get your priorities across to both the executive as well as members of council. And it's now turned over to you. So we'll be glad to entertain your suggestions. Thank you.
Well, good evening. My name is Michelle Wright, and I live in Hebron, Maryland. And I would like to first thank you, Mr. Culver, and the County Council for the funding to complete the track at Mardell Middle and High School. It was a much-needed addition to the athletic program, and both you and I were invited to attend the homecoming at the school in October by the sports boosters, and it was a wonderful night. The students, staff, and community filled the new bleachers, and you could feel the sense of pride and the excitement by everyone. We are very grateful to see it come to a reality after waiting for so long. I stand here tonight with 4 different hats. First, I'm a resident of Wicomico County, and I live in the Mardella School District and a proud parent of 2 that attended and graduated from Mardella High School. Secondly, I was appointed by the governor, and I was honored to serve on the Wicomico County Board of Education as vice president and president for 6 years. My third hat is I am currently serving on the Wicomico Education Foundation, which shows my continued support of educational systems. Please note that I'm a member, but I'm not speaking on behalf of that committee. My fourth hat is that I'm currently sitting on the Mardella EdSpec Committee, representing the community. I am thrilled to hear that Mardella Middle and High School is a priority in Wicomico County and for our county government. I am thrilled to hear that this project is still in the CIP, and that you are working to ensure that the funding will be in place to keep this school renovation on schedule. There are many reasons why we need to keep this project as a priority and to be completed by 2023. The first part of this school was built in 1958, and the last real renovation was completed in 1980. If we keep this on schedule, the school will be 65 years old at completion. Now, there are many issues and concerns, and I know that you've heard this before, but I feel it's important that we repeat them. The educational issues: inadequate space for instruction and services. Students have gym class in the hallways. The weight room is portable. We're limited on the number of students that can take that class, and of course with low ceilings you can't really lift weights and get the full experience of having that class and meeting that requirement. There are 9 portables, and there's no space to add classes such as AP level classes. Now, safety issues. Safety is a big issue right now all across the nation. So I want to touch on those a few minutes. There's no fire suppression systems, so that's a major safety issue. Outdated fire alarm and life safety systems. The Board of Ed has installed a new secure vestibule at the entrance of the school, but now we have a bottleneck. The students are having trouble getting through that small space to get from one end of the building to the other. The building and parking. Mechanical systems are at the end of their service life. You can't get the parts. The electric gear beyond useful service life. Inadequate ceiling system and lighting levels. Not enough parking. We have 1 handicap spot in the back of the school where the athletic fields are located. And the building does not meet the current energy codes. Now, while serving on the EdSpec committee since September, I have listened to the staff and administrators share their wants and needs for the students. They are asking for adequate sized classrooms, work planning spaces, supplies such as desks and chairs. These folks know that they need to be fiscally responsible with taxpayers' money while trying to meet the needs of the students. The administrators, the teachers, the staff are not asking for the moon, but for a building that will allow them to prepare students for the future, for a better tomorrow, to teach students with the latest technology, to teach students in a safe place, and to teach students in a great learning environment. Our students and parents have been more than patient, and our children deserve better, and they deserve the best. And before I close, one question that I have is that typically at this time of the year, the bond sales take place, and I was told that you're looking at other revenue streams or avenues to keep these projects in queue, and I'm curious to know what the plan is. Are we going to sell bonds, or are we looking at other revenue streams? And then if so, what are they, and when will they take place? And with that, I just want to thank you again for supporting Mardella.
Yes, to respond to your question, we have not determined what path we're going to take with regard to borrowing and/or other funding sources. We are considering what's called a bank anticipation note, which is essentially a line of credit that you can draw down, pay interest only. We've put an RFP out on that. We've gotten responses, and we're considering that as opposed to going to the market and taking out a 15 to 20-year bond issue. And our concern with doing that right now is, as the executive alluded to, we're not quite sure what's going to come out of the General Assembly during this session. And until we know what legislation is going to be passed and what costs are going to be passed down to the county, it's difficult for us to forecast what our debt affordability is going to be. So we're going to pause on that. It's not going to compromise us from an interest rate standpoint, because interest rates are still static, if you will. So we're going to take our time with that, see what direction the legislature takes, and we'll have our ducks in a row, if you will, with regard to either long-term bond financing or what's called bank bond anticipation notes. We'll meet with our financial advisor, Davenport and Associates, during Wicomico, which is the first week in December, and discuss that further and game plan, if you will, what the various opportunities may be and what looks best under different scenarios. So I would say we're probably 2 months away from that decision.
Am I wrong in that we normally make those decisions now so that we keep all of our projects moving forward for the next year? So with what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're not going to do that right now because we're still trying to decide what the right path is. So essentially, our projects could or will be delayed. Is that a safe?
We meet on a monthly basis with Dr. Hanlon, with Superintendent Stouffer, with Jesse Reed, the Finance Director, and with Liesl Ashby, who runs the construction program. And what we do not want to do is compromise the progress of those projects. So we want to keep them, particularly we want to keep them in the queue at the IAC at the state level, so that we don't fall out of the state funding sequence. So we have those discussions. I'm on the school building commission. We have those discussions on a regular basis about determining how we keep the cash flow in the queue, if you will, to keep those projects from falling out of schedule.
Right.
It's just simply a matter of what financing technique we're going to use.
Okay. And I'll add to that. You know, I'm here to really to speak about Mardella.
Yeah.
But, you know, I live in Wicomico County,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm expecting you to keep all the projects going that make us a better county and a place to live. So, you know, I'm not speaking just on behalf of Mardella as far as the bond sales and whatever the plans you have. I would like, as a taxpayer, to see all the projects keep moving forward and nothing to fall back in line, and nothing not, I want something to happen. I don't want to sit back and nothing to happen because we haven't made decisions for what needs to be done today.
Yeah,
So,
that's our desire as well. We just want to be sure that we make good, prudent decisions, because this will impact the county over a 15 to 20-year period. So we're just being a bit cautious.
okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let me help you out a little bit. There's going to be things happening. First of all, your taxes are going to go up. When the Kerwin Commission comes down and tells us what we've got to do over the next 10 years, it looks like about 2 cents per year for the next 10 years that we will have to contribute to that. We also have the $15 an hour minimum wage, which your husband and I both testified on and talked to Speaker Bush at the time, how it's going to affect your business, how it affects the county. It affects us by $8 million a year more. So there, you'll be looking at roughly another 7 to 8 cents more in your tax rate. So you're looking at a good 25 cents tax rate to 30 over the next 10 years. So things are going to start happening. But all the projects that we have listed are not going to go forward. That's why we've got to prioritize, and I've got to work with the Board of Education, and I've got to work with the airport. I've got to work with everybody else to try to do what we can do. But let me explain a little bit what Wayne was telling you. Maybe I can put it in more simpler terms. That what we're doing is borrowing money like you were building a house. You go and get a construction loan. You don't pay the interest on it till you pull it out. Let me give you a good example, and not to pinpoint the sheriff's office, but we borrowed $5 million for the sheriff's office, and then we changed, not them, but we changed architects. That's put us almost 9 months behind. Meanwhile, we're still paying interest on that $5 million that's sitting in our account. So what we're hoping to do is alleviate that. We have been approved for a $20 million cash loan. Sign on the line, we're $20 million. And then what we hope to do is to build these projects. At that point in time, go back and get a permanent loan. And that'll save us hundreds of thousands of dollars every year in what you saw Weston point out, what we're paying in interest a year. So that'll give me more money to go towards more projects to get done, such as the roof on the school. You know, I want to get all this done, but every dollar I have to save, I've got to be able to utilize it at another spot somewhere else in the county. So, you know, we're going to be working on that. And you know, I want to do it all, but we can't. I can't go that far, that fast. So, you know, we'll make up our minds, and we'll see what else we've got coming forward. But as Weston said, we don't know what the legislature is going to do yet. And if we had any kind of inkling as to what they were going to do for sure, it would be so much easier. But right now, until they get into their session, we're still at a loss a little bit. So I hope that helps a little bit explain. I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to hold you up.
Good evening. I'm Liza Hastings. I come to you tonight as the proud principal of Mardella Middle and High School and the proud alum of Mardella High School class of '92. Thank you to the county executive and county council for providing the funding last year to move forward with the planning phase of the Mardela Renovation and Addition project. An educational specification is in the process of being completed, and members of the community, staff, and student body have all played a role in this process. As a community school, we take great pride in the education and overall experience that we are able to provide to our students and future citizens of our Mardella community. Whether we have children who are currently attending Mardella, children who will be attending Mardella, or we are simply members of this special community, we all understand that a renovation is absolutely needed if we are to provide our children with the same level of safety and academic experiences that the other schools in Wicomico County are able to provide. My job as principal is to ensure that my students are provided with a safe environment that is conducive to instruction. Unfortunately, the condition of our current building makes this very difficult to achieve. Our 677 students are comprised of 303 middle schoolers and 374 high schoolers. Our building cannot house all of these students, and as a result, we have added 9 portable classrooms in the back of our building. These portables cannot provide the same level of safety and security as the classrooms inside of our building. We keep our building locked except for during class changes when it must be open to allow students to come and go between the main building and the portables. As a result, our building is not secured for 58 minutes of every school day. Also, the portables cannot offer the same level of protection from the weather, fire, or from someone wanting to do harm as our main building can. Because our school population has grown so much since 1980, which, as Ms. Wright shared, was the last time that any sort of renovation has been done, we've had to hire additional teachers. Unfortunately, we don't have enough classrooms for all of our teachers, so we have 4 teachers who move between classrooms all day long, traveling to other teachers' classrooms during their planning periods. Besides the academic holes that floating teachers from room to room creates, since these teachers must take the first few minutes of each period to organize and prepare their materials for their lesson, thus losing valuable instructional time, it also creates a significant safety concern. These traveling teachers are not physically able to be at their classroom doors greeting students as they enter the room and actively monitoring the hallway and classrooms. Instead, they're traveling to class just as the students are. One of the most effective strategies for creating a safe climate in their classrooms is for teachers to greet students at the door so that they can set a positive tone and assess if there are any needs that any of their students may have. Instead, those classrooms are unsupervised while the teachers work to arrive to their room navigating the extremely crowded hallways. The antiquated systems in our building has created some serious concerns and issues. Our facilities department is at our school regularly to address failed heating or air conditioning. Unfortunately, they're working with systems that are outdated, and often they have to manufacture their own parts and create workarounds to address the issues. On any given day, I can walk into a classroom and it will be in the low 80s, and the classroom next door will be in the upper 60s. I often have to move classrooms for the day so that our facilities department can get into the classroom to attempt to repair the units. When classrooms are moved, instruction is negatively impacted as teachers do not have access to their materials needed for solid instruction. Our parking setup is another cause for concern. Currently, our buses and vehicles all use the same entrance and exit. Our students must cross the bus lane and teacher parking to get to their parents who are picking them up. Our student drivers, who are also our most inexperienced drivers, must not only walk through staff and bus lanes to get to their cars, but then they must also back into and drive through the same small parking area as our parents who are picking up, and then share the exit with the parents and buses. Besides our front parking, our parking for athletic events during fall and spring sports season is not adequate and causes people to park in areas that are not designated for parking, also creating a safety concern. Besides our significant safety and health concerns, we also have serious instructional concerns due to the physical structure of our building. We have 2 classrooms at each end of A wing that are open classrooms. They don't have a door nor wall on the hallway side. These classrooms are consistently challenged by noise in the hallways and other classrooms. The teachers in these rooms are unable to close their doors when testing or participating in another type of activity that requires quiet. Beyond the instructional inadequacies of these 2 rooms, they too bring another safety concern, as we have no way to lock these rooms should there be a safety threat within our building. Our students and teachers in these classrooms would not be able to lock themselves in their classrooms as a defensive measure should the unthinkable occur. 2 of our science classes are housed in portables. These portables do not have sufficient water sources for experiments that either require water for the experiment or requires cleanup using water and sinks. In all of our science classrooms, and especially the ones housed in the portables, we have limited counter space, which limits the room to prep and perform experiments. Our science rooms have limited storage and lab space to make up for our lack of counter space for experiments. All of our classrooms that are housed in portables face a significant disadvantage due to space issues. The limited space does not allow for collaborative work and movement in the classroom, especially when additional materials are brought in to enhance the lesson. Our students miss out on the opportunity to fully engage with their learning when they do not have the ability to collaborate and discover together in small groups. Currently, our existing space for PE classes is less than adequate. In order to meet the needs of all of our students, remember both middle and high school, who have classes in the gymnasium, we often have to hold at least 1 class in the lobby. Our weight room, which is used for our strength and conditioning class, is held in a portable which is not adequately sized for a full class. In order to deal with the limited space, we have to move our students outside and in the lobby in order to participate in much of the weight training. Our wrestlers must practice in the cafeteria every day because the gym is taken up by our middle school and high school girls and boys basketball teams. Wrestling mats are stored in the cafeteria. The wrestlers must break down the cafeteria tables each day, roll out the mats for practice, take the mats up after practice each day, and set up the cafeteria for breakfast service for the next day, all during their allotted practice time. Because we have no auditorium, the wrestlers must share the cafeteria with the band, chorus, orchestra, and drama students, again putting our students at a disadvantage to our county counterparts who have ready access to their rooms and equipment every day after school and are able to benefit from 2 hours of daily practice, whereas we lose at least 30 minutes of practice each day due to setup and teardown. The wrestlers also lose entire days of practice as well due to the arts program's usage of the stage, as well as other programs that we host for our parents. Our arts rooms have limited space for storage. We're forced to use the stage and several storage sheds outside, which we've purchased through funds raised by parents in order to store all of our needed equipment. We also do not have a classroom for our orchestra students, and they're forced to have their class on the stage if the cafeteria is not being used by another class or being used for another event. Of the different options that exist to renovate Mardella, options 1 and 2 would not solve the safety or the instructional problems that I've just spoken of. Only option 3, a limited renovation and addition, will truly meet the needs of our school community. It's important that funding for option 3 continue to move forward so that our students and the community we serve can benefit. I know that you'll do the right thing and fund this renovation. Thanks for listening and for doing what's best for our children and for our community.
Hello, Diane Robinstein, also a proud parent of a Mardella student. And in respect to your time, I don't want to go over the same things that Michelle and Mrs. Hastings has talked about, but I do want to address 2 concerns I have tonight. First is looking at the Board of Education project priority list. Looking at the Mardella line, there's a total of $18 million. And it's my understanding that the state would also match that, which would only come to about $36 million. Our renovation number 3 would be a total of at least $70 million. So by looking at this project priority list, it tells me that possibly the Mardella funds that are set to go to Mardella on this list would be for systematic corrections or Band-Aids. And I want to, my second concern is to challenge, not to challenge or confront, but to challenge the county council to be maybe more creative in their funding. I believe the Board of Education has done a great job. All schools are not able to offer all curriculums, so I think they do a great job having students transported to other schools so that they can still partake in other curriculums and get a well-rounded education. And I feel like Mardella is different than most of the other schools. It's the heart of our community, and therefore I feel like not only renovating the school helps the students, but it helps the community and it revitalizes the community. So I think when we talk about funding for it, we need to keep the community in mind as well and use that possibly as a source for alternative funding. So thank you.
So on the first concern, again, what's I'll say deceptive about these slides is this is just the general fund amount from the county. Looking at it, I believe in fiscal year 2024, we don't have anything for Mardella High Middle. I'm pretty sure the state is having a larger sum that year. So to the best of my knowledge, what's being proposed on this presentation is option 3, and it's just what the county, what they're asking the county to fund option 3.
Good evening. I'm Ashley Teagle, the Executive Director for Wicomico Public Libraries. I just wanted to say thank you for considering all of the library's projects in the CIP. And I just wanted to share a few quick highlights. This past fiscal year, we were able to register over 4,000 new library card holders. Our library programs, we went up, we offered more programs than the previous fiscal year, and we saw a 33% increase in attendance at our children's programs. Additionally, we had a 109% increase to virtual visits, which is when customers are using our website to gain access to our online resources, such as our catalog to search for books, the online databases we offer, and our digital audiobook and ebook resources. So my first request was for funding towards a new facilities master plan for our library system. Since the original study was completed in 2013, we've seen about a 4.5% increase in our population. So my goal would be to get a new plan that will offer us guidance so that any future library projects are a good use of county and state funding. My additional request, of course, is for the Pittsville branch. The community's been very vocal about wanting a new library. Community members have reached out to me personally to recommend sites that they would be willing to offer for the new branch. And currently, that library is in a trailer that's just not meant to be a permanent facility. If we are able to obtain land and build a new library, that could meet the needs of all the residents on the east side of the county. Residents are currently relying on Pittsville for faxing, checking out books, using the computers, and for library programs. I actually visited the branch yesterday. We launched mobile hotspot lending, and all of their hotspots are currently checked out. So there's definitely a need for service on the east side. Additionally, I asked for funding to refurbish our center branch located in the mall. We were the first public library system in Maryland to offer a library inside of the mall. And the storefront is an ideal space because it gives us flexibility in configuring the location. The center at Salisbury Management has actually been donating that space to us, which is a huge gift. And so the renovation funds could help make the facility a little more energy efficient. Again, looking at long-range planning of how to make the library a little more affordable by reducing those energy costs and also doing some general updating and refreshing to the meeting room, which is heavily used. Additionally, I'm requesting funding to do a design and planning process for the downtown branch. It was built in 1914 and converted to the library in 1969. I've heard many community concerns since taking this position regarding the safety of that main entrance. It's kind of dark and hard to highlight. Community members have also expressed that our meeting room spaces are unwelcoming and just aren't meeting their needs. So, let's see. When the building was first opened, I'll also point out that main branch, our population in the county was less than half of what it is now. And so at this point, the building at the size it currently is insufficient to meet the needs of the county. A new library, again, will help reduce costs. There are many ways that we can design facilities to be much more energy efficient as well as ADA compliant. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Scott Robinstein, the second Robinstein you heard from this evening. So just a couple of questions here. I certainly see the limitation in terms of your debt servicing. Obviously, we got to find ways to find new revenue. If we think about the millions of people that travel through our county, they're using our general services, they're using our IT, they're using our sheriff's department, they're using the public works, they're using the libraries, the public health system, the airport, the parks. So I guess I'm challenging the council to think of creative ways that we could maybe take 32 million out of the pocket of those that move through our county. I'm willing to pay our share of taxes as a resident of the county, but maybe we could find a way to generate some more revenue through the tourism. I'm not anti-tourism by any means. I just think sharing the responsibility of putting this agenda in place and seeing some action is pretty important. And maybe it's already in the general fund. I'm not 100% sure, but creative ways to try to find, ways to extract resources out of the millions of people that come through our county, use our services. And like I said, I'm certainly willing to pay our fair share of taxes to get this project done, but might be another revenue source. Thank you.
If you've got any ideas, let us know.
If I could respond to that just briefly, one of the challenges that Wicomico County has is that 10 miles to the north on Route 13, you enter Delaware. Completely different tax environment than we have in the state of Maryland. 10 miles to the east, you enter Worcester County with a much, much lower property tax rate and a much, much lower local income tax rate. So one of the things that is challenging the county is that, to your point, we're providing the infrastructure for employment for a four-county area, and many of the people who come to work each day in Wicomico County are transient from other counties or another state, Virginia, Delaware, Worcester County to some extent, Dorchester County, although their tax environment is not much more lenient, if you will, than ours. So the bigger issue for us is people who come to work in the state of Maryland who don't live in the state of Maryland pay a non-resident tax to the state, but they don't pay a local income tax. So it's really a challenge for us to continue, as you said, to provide that infrastructure for employment. You've got PRMC, you have Salisbury University, you have what I call the doctors, the lawyers, and the Indian chiefs, the educational community, Purdue. We would need state legislation that would allow us to impose a local income tax on non-residents, and that is a huge challenge. So from my standpoint, I would say that it's probably a bigger priority to determine how we make ourselves more competitive, if you will, with those other jurisdictions, so that we retain or have more residents living here, working here, and paying local taxes.
And that's absolutely spot on. I agree with you 100%. And by doing that, it's investing in our schools, our education
Correct.
systems, and making sure these kids get educated and understand what a nickel is and can provide good services for folks like Purdue and Mount Air and those that work in our county and want to move into our county. But I do think those folks that are moving through our counties that are using the resources, we've got to find a way to help get some support to continue to lift the entire county forward. So thank you.
And again, we would need state support on that. That would require state legislation, I believe.
Very well.
But it's a point well taken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Kurt Twilley, principal of Beaver Run. Just wanted to take a moment to say thank you very much. We are well underway in the building process and the design process, and we'll start the building process here very shortly, hopefully in March. The property's been reconfigured for construction. Construction fences are up. A lot of the preliminary things are occurring, and it's all to your commitment to the project, and I greatly appreciate your consideration and obviously hopefully anticipate your consideration for the next several years as we work through the funding cycles that we have coming up. It's a very exciting project. It's an absolutely beautiful building, and I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you've done to make it happen.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Let's see if I can guess what you're after now. Little roof.
Good evening. My name is Chris Nunzi, and I'm the principal at Westside Intermediate School. I've come here tonight to request your support for the funding of the roof replacement, which is in the Capital Improvement Program's budget this year. Currently, the existing roof has been on the school for over 20 years and has been plagued with numerous leaks in recent years. Our facilities department's tried to keep up with those leaks, but at this time I have to say the water's winning the battle. I'm grateful for the funding you provided in last year's budget, and I'm hoping that you're able to provide the same level of support for the coming year. Our goal is that the county funding, in conjunction with the state funding, we hope that will come through this year, will be enough to finally complete this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Donna Hanlon, Superintendent of Schools, County Executive Culver, Mr. Strasburg, and Mr. Young. First, thank you for your ongoing support of our public schools. In Wicomico County Schools, we have amazing students and staff who we celebrate every day for their extraordinary accomplishments. At the same time, we have unique challenges, including an increasingly diverse student population, aging building infrastructure, increased enrollments, and in response, We continue to expand educational initiatives to meet those challenges while building upon our accomplishments. We take great pride in making data-driven decisions in our strategic planning process, including the prioritization of our school facility needs. All of our decisions are made based upon our goal to ensure that students not only have access to high-quality instructional programming, but that it's being delivered in adequate facilities. With those goals in mind, while we have many needs in terms of our facilities, we have prioritized our capital needs to just 3, as you've heard this evening. As we prioritized, we did consider your concerns with funding all of the needs of the county and what you have described as the unknown in terms of Kerwin funding and that requirement on local government. The good news is, I believe, from all of the figures that we're seeing coming from the work of the Kerwin Commission, they continue to indicate that holding local wealth and enrollment constant, the vast majority of a required increased funding for local schools will come from the state, not from the local government, for the next 4 to 5 years. So we thank you for listening tonight to your constituents from West Side Intermediate School, Beaver Run Elementary School, and Mardella Middle and High School, and considering our needs. In each case, as you've heard, it's either the school administrator or the parents who have been highly involved in the school community, who have been asked to speak on behalf of their entire school community to talk about these prioritized needs. As we always have committed to doing, we want to continue to work with you to find ways to meet the needs of our community and our schools. Thank you.
I'll be brief, I promise.
No problem. I just didn't see you coming up. I apologize.
Miss me, my son? My name's Audrey Orr. I'm resident of Wicomico County, and I'm on the Board of Trustees for the library, but I'm here tonight to speak as a private citizen. And frankly, hadn't planned to, until I heard some of the comments, and it sort of reminded me how important the county's economic growth is in terms of attracting residents and businesses. Even more important with the things you mentioned, the issues you mentioned this evening, the Kerwin funding requirements, the increase in minimum wage, the fact that people use our county in terms of coming here to work and use our roads but don't reside here. And the effect of capital expenditures, I understand that those decisions extend way into the future. It's challenging to measure what the results are going to be. It's certainly difficult to judge what's the biggest bang for the buck. I certainly appreciate all that. But proximity to core community assets, such as the library, increases property values, makes the county more attractive to people who might like to live here. It also builds a sense of place, community, adds to that quality of life. And anytime you go to any site on the web saying best place to live, you'll see things we all expect: crime, housing, cost of living, etc. You'll also see the quote-unquote amenities, such as recreational and libraries. And I put amenities in quotes because some of the things the library does, such as the early childhood initiatives, health literacy, digital literacy, workforce development, the items that our Executive Director, Ashley Teagle, outlined very clearly. To me, those are sort of necessities in today's age. So I just want to end with the fact that a well-supported library increases property values. It's a cornerstone for a sense of place. It provides services for members of our most underserved community and population, along with making the county more attractive to residents and businesses, which drives our economic growth. Thank you. And thank you for all the work you've done on this.
Well, thank you all so much. We appreciate your time. And let me assure you that the words you've spoken tonight are not falling on deaf ears. We realize that. You know, I wish I had a magic wand that I could go ahead and finance everything, but there'll be some cuts, and I'm not sure where they're going to be yet. Ms. Teagle, we are working. We have been negotiating with the property owners down in Pittsville as far as working on a new library. It's taking another building, of course, and making it suitable for what your needs are. So we're working on that now, and that may last for the next 10 years, but we've got to take steps. We didn't get to where we are overnight, and I'm not going to get us out of this hole overnight. So But nothing has fallen on deaf ears, and we promise you that we will continue to work with the Board of Education to try to get their needs met, your needs met, as well as the library needs met, everybody. And Chris, I hope we can get that roof on your building this year. So we appreciate all the kind things you've said. And I want to say again, thank you all for being concise and being to the point. So this hasn't been a long, drawn-out night, and if there's anybody who would like to stay afterwards and talk to any of us, we're more than happy to. So with that, again, thank you all so much for coming out. We appreciate it. Drive carefully. See you soon.